engagement that we see right now. And I hope that it continues. And I know that it will. And I know that you're invested in the success of all the programs and all of the individuals that you support at a very high level all across the state. So thank you for that. And with that, Carol, I'll turn it back to you to start the questions.
Okay, great. And just a reminder to everybody that if you do have a question as we're going through some of this stuff, we'll answer some of the ones that have come into the COVID inbox, of course. But please use the chat feature to ask questions, and we'll take a look at those. And if we have an answer for them, we will do our best to try and answer them. So we're going to start off as far as some of the topics we want to cover. Just start with giving you an update on Appendix K, and Commissioner Turner is going to make a couple of remarks about that.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I know that that's been the most pressing thing for everyone, and I'm going to be very direct with you. I do not have any new information today, but I also want to be very clear to you that every day that I wake up right now, that is my number one priority and number one focus on making sure that we get you an answer as soon as possible, that we're advocating for you as hard as we can. I actually have some meetings coming up tomorrow that my singular focus will be making sure that I advocate for you and doing what's right by you and the individuals that we support. So I'm hoping that tomorrow I will have a lot more clarity on the direction that we're going, and that I will have information that will be presented to me that will give me an idea about what that's going to look like. But I wanted to take ownership on this call of letting you know that I'm very aware of the pain points that you're experiencing as providers. I take them very serious. I've had a number of phone calls. I've had a number of emails. I've had a number of communications from individuals and providers letting me know how significant the impact is on you as a business, as an individual, and as on someone who employs other people in the community that need this to survive. And I take that very seriously. And I want you to know that that is the number one priority that I'm focusing on right now, to make sure that we advocate for you in a respectful but a very efficient and very direct way to try to get the right answers back and the right thing to be done as it relates to Appendix K. So I want all of you to stay tuned. I'm asking you to trust me when I tell you that we are advocating. That just because you might not see it publicly does not mean that it's not happening privately. And we are going to bat for you the best that we can to make sure that we get an answer that's going to be acceptable to us, but also be fair to all of the parties that are involved and contributing to the decision-making process. So I'm hoping next week we'll have something concrete. If we do have something happen before that, I want to make sure that we let you know that as well. So this is a priority that I've established for myself, and I want you to know that I'm helping to take the lead on this, and that I'm going to be trying to drive this point home that this is not something that we can keep discussing, that we need an action plan to keep pushing, and that we need something that helps our providers, because if we're saying that we're good partners,
okay, that's a pretty good explanation as to why everyone should mute their phones. So continue, Commissioner Turner.
That's good. I mean, anytime the Skynet lets me know that they're watching, I want to be aware of it, because I want to be careful of what I'm saying. So they did that, and I will be very careful. And I will wrap up by saying that we appreciate you as partners. What's important to you needs to be very important to us, and we're advocating fiercely on your behalf to make sure that what we do is right and what the outcome is right for you. So thank you for understanding that, and we will be in touch as soon as we have good information that's permanent for you that we can share.
All right, thank you so much for that update, Commissioner Turner. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is, I believe that since we have last had this call, we discussed that we were working on something to provide some guidance around background checks, and because of the difficulty obtaining them at this time. Our General Counsel, Teresa Sloan, is on the phone, and she can give you an update. You should have seen some of the basic information in Open Line last week.
Hey, sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute my phone. I think everybody should have seen the article that went out last week in Open Line regarding background checks. We worked closely with the governor's office, and we were able to get approval for suspension of the background check requirement. in 33.2.1202, which is what statute is applicable to providers. The suspension will be memorialized shortly in an executive order, but it is approved as of last week, and providers are not required to conduct background checks on employees prior to the employee beginning work. Now, I want to say we've had a couple questions. If y'all are capable of getting a background check, and by capable, I mean you have a company that can still somehow acquire that information with final dispositions on any charges, you are free to continue to run those background checks. And if a conviction comes up that could be prohibitive, send it through the exemption process. We're not saying not to submit them if you can. We're just saying you don't have to if you can't. This will remain in place. This will remain in place until such time as the state of emergency is lifted by the governor, which right now is scheduled for May 18th, but could be extended. At that point, providers will have 90 days from that date to submit the background checks to a private investigation company or the TBI. And the background checks must be submitted for everyone that they did not have one because of the suspension. And again, that's 90 days to submit it to be run. It's not get it to us in 90 days. We wanted to not inundate the courts as soon as they opened with tons and tons of background checks. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I know some providers send in blanket requests to not have to complete background checks during this time. Those requests we withdrew those requests since the suspension from the governor's office came through with approval. There's no need for providers to submit such exceptions at this time. I see that Dawn had a question regarding background checks and whether or not this is for 1915Cs. Technically, background check requirements in 33.2.1202 are for providers that are licensed through the department. So I would check with the MCO or whoever requires the background checks through ECS and let them know about the suspension. I mean, I feel they should know because most of them get open line and get their position on that. They would have the ability to waive it if they so chose, but obviously the department doesn't have the authority to do that for anything but the 1915 waivers. Thanks, Kara.
All right, thanks very much for that update, Teresa. All right, the next thing we're going to also give you an update on is the medication administration, the Reliance review, and how many people have taken it. And I believe Dr. Davis is going to discuss that with us, or he might turn it over to Director of Nursing David Taylor. So Dr. Davis?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. So far, and this is the course that allows uncertified staff who have not been certified in medication administration to be overseen by a video and audio connection by someone who has been certified so that they can administer medications in instance where they haven't been able to get that certification. So far we have had 886 people who have been assigned or completed the course. It's assigned by the agency leadership. So they let us know that someone needs to take the course and we enroll them at that point. And there have been 430 completions of that training up to this point. And I counted 46 agencies that have availed themselves of this training so far. So that's a report on what we have at this time. And that's a pretty good response.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Davis, on that. So a couple of things I also wanted to, before I get into that, actually, another thing we've talked a lot about over the course of the past couple of weeks, and we wanted to give you an update on, is PPE and the acquisition of that on behalf of providers. Deputy Commissioner Andy Kidd's on the phone, and he can give us an update on that.
Good morning. Thanks, Kara. Yeah, we have been receiving PPE from TEMA and have been distributing that to providers in our network. One thing that we request is if you have a specific need that you reach out to us. Obviously, we don't want to stockpile PPE, and we want to make sure that that's shared among the regions and giving that to providers as necessary. We are continuing to provide PPE for pending and positive cases. So as those are reported, then we'll continue to provide that PPE. Thanks, Kara.
Okay, and then so the one thing we also wanted to talk about, and it is surrounding the DSP video. If you have not had an opportunity to take a look at the DIDD Facebook page, we did have a video from Commissioner Turner on Friday, specifically for DSPs, just thanking them for being on the front lines during this COVID-19 crisis and the wonderful job they've been doing. I know they care tremendously about the people that they support, and to see their comments back on our Facebook page about how proud they are to do the job they do has, especially even at this time, and especially at this time, was very heartwarming. I know that many of you all saw it, many of you shared it, but if your DSPs haven't had a chance to see it, we would definitely encourage you to do so, just so that they know that we see them and that that we as a department, and particularly Commissioner Turner, want to thank them for their actions at this time. Kind of along the lines of that, one of the things that we are doing, and also the governor's office is doing. So we have two different kind of social media campaigns going on right now. The first one is going to be a long-term one for the department called DSPs in Tennessee. And what we would like to do is really highlight monthly extraordinary DSPs who are making a difference in the lives of the people we support. It'll be modeled very similarly to what we do with our state employees, the DIDD at Work campaign. And what we just require is a name, why a nomination, why they should be considered, a picture, and then we'll reach out and do some stuff as well. The other thing is the governor's office has launched a statewide campaign called Everyday Heroes, and this is to single out people all across Tennessee who are doing extraordinary things during this time. And I want to make sure that you all are aware of this. And if you have submissions of people who you are either have at your agency, employed at your agency, or even people you're supporting who are doing incredible things at this time to help their neighbors and help the state in this crisis, please send those to us as well, because this is a statewide effort, and we want to make sure that we're highlighting the folks that we support and the folks that are working in our agencies as a part of this campaign. I'm looking at the chat, and I am. And it says the video was awesome. Can we share on our Facebook page and agency website? Yes, you can actually share directly. If you press the share link on our video, you can share that directly on your Facebook page. The video is also on YouTube, on the DIDD YouTube channel, and that can be likely embedded onto a agency website through that link as well. So, so those are two options for how to get the video to places. So I do see a question really quickly, and it was something actually we were going to talk about, is some of those deadlines that are coming up as far as a lot of the things that we had suspended had end of the month dates on them as far as when those suspensions were up. And I see a question about what are the plans for QA surveys. So just to speak to that and the larger issue of all of the guidance as far as all of those deadlines that are out there, I'm going to let Deputy Commissioner Jordan Allen speak.
Thanks, Kara. So each of the policy exemptions or revisions that we've implemented thus far will ultimately be extended, or the latitude to continue to operationalize those changes will it be extended through the duration of the approved Appendix K document. For the time being, because we're still awaiting final approval, as Commissioner Turner indicated in opening statements, the department will look at each of the policy revisions we've made thus far and be providing extensions on a short-term basis until we can link to the expiration of the K document. So anything that we've put in place thus far, the department is poised to extend, and then once we're able to be more definitive with an approved Appendix K document, I think the final deadline, or at least the opportunity for us to make the decisions as a collective as to which of those policies remain and which should be scaled back, hopefully as the coronavirus pandemic continues to recess, then we'll communicate those in real time.
Pat, do you want to answer the specific question about QA surveys?
I had just typed into the chat, but yes, the survey schedules, as Jordan mentioned, in general, the survey schedules are tied to Appendix K, and those, the information about where we're going in terms of adjustments will be shared when we are able to discuss Appendix K in depth.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right. So the question that we had, question that we got in for the COVID inbox was around DIDD guidance, Dsps. The specific question was about the fact that statewide the order is being lifted, the stay-at-home order is being lifted, and while homebound services are still in effect for persons supported, the fact that DSPs on their free time may be engaging more in the community, and our thoughts about that. Jordan, or Commissioner Turner, do either of you want to answer that question?
I'm sorry, Kara, this is Jordan. Can you repeat the question? I missed it.
It's in regards to DSPs on their free time having more contact, with the stay-at-home being lifted, potentially having more contact, and in general, with the stay-at-home order being lifted, persons in surrounding people supported having more contact with the outside world.
Sure. So the department has maintained at this point that we are continuing, obviously based on the increased level of risk for people with compromised immune systems or underlying medical conditions, we continue to remain committed to safer at home guidelines. The guidance that we've issued thus far is continued at this point. We're strongly encouraging all persons to continue to maintain social distancing guidelines. The hygienic practices that we've recommended obviously need to continue to remain in place. While the department does not maintain jurisdictional authority that would allow us to cross into direct support workers' free time, we would encourage strongly that agencies are continuing to maintain dialogue with their staff bodies about the importance of maintaining the recommendations that both the state and the federal government continue to represent. And then in the meantime, there's also operational guidance that's been issued relative to temperature checks and some of the procedural things that we can do as a community to try to best assure the safety of people supported in our programs. And we certainly would continue to encourage provider agencies to operationalize those safeguards until we hear different.
Great. And Jordan, I'm going to keep you on the line because the next two questions we've gotten into the chat box are also in your area. The first one is any updates on the family limit of 40 hours and a possible exemption on that? Sure.
So we've communicated, I think in the last office hour session and maybe the one previous to that the department has provided for flexibility as it relates to the 40-hour limit on family members providing services. What we've requested is that each individual request come in to the appropriate regional office. The regional office administrative directors will field the request, document the request and the justification for that request, and then on a case-by-case basis, render disposition on the approval. I think we've had just a handful of those thus far, and we've approved each one. We want to make absolutely certain that both the person requesting, and sometimes that's the family member, and the agency ultimately who will be supporting the request from a financial perspective are aligned and aware. Right now, as people are sheltering at home still, or there's less communication between families and provider agencies, we just want to ensure that both parties are aware of the request and prepared with an approval to be able to operationalize that request on behalf of the family. So send it into your regional office. We'll review each on a case-by-case basis, and certainly where it's needed and warranted, we're poised to approve.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. And the next question is also in the program operations area. It's, can we get an update on DIDD transitions or admissions that are currently on hold?
So the transition policy that we put in place, obviously in concert with trying to reduce exposure on behalf of people supported and the staff supporting them, remains in place. That said, as is kind of consistent with the previous response, we have been receiving, reviewing, and approving individual transition requests. Obviously, if there's a planned transition that if it's failed to be executed is going to result in negative consequence for the person supported, then we're going to do everything we can to ensure that that transition, in fact, is approved. And then there are some measures that Dr. Davis and the clinical services team have been consulting with agencies and healthcare providers on to best assure that people, as they are transitioning, are doing so in the safest manner possible. So any transition requests need to, as is concurrent with the guidance on the 40-hour family member limit, come into the regional office. That information is shared with the clinical services and central office team, and then we're reviewing, putting out recommendations relative to the transition, and then approving where appropriate.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. I see a question about CPR being done online for refreshers and for new. I'm not sure that we know the answer to that question right now. So what we can do is I'll take a look at it, and if any of my team has an answer to that question, please jump in and let me know. But if what we'll do is we'll take that back and look into it and try to communicate that answer to you as well. Any other questions? Oh, okay, never mind. Dave Harrell says an answer to that question, so I'll let him get to that.
Thank you, Kara. We have, in collaboration with the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, we have taken the stance that CPR training must continue as it is already laid out. Most of our training can be done virtually, but if there are any CPR courses that can be done remotely that are certified, I'm not aware of them, but we'll be glad to entertain that. But as of now, we have not waived the requirements for CPR training.
Okay, any other questions for anyone, from anyone? I'll hold for about 15 seconds to see if anything comes in the chat box, and if not, then I'll turn it back over to Commissioner Turner to see us out. Okay. I don't see any more questions. Like I said, we're continuing, we're committed to continuing to be here, same time, same place. Up, we've got one. What about extensions for first aid CPR? Have those been extended? Teresa, do you have any guidance on this? And if not, like I said, we're continuing to look at things, and we can take them back if we don't have an answer right now.
Right. I think we do. And I think we've put out communication about this, maybe in a special edition of Open Line, Kara. They've been extended. We're following the actual certified CPR classes and their advice and what they've done regarding certifications and extension of classes. So at this point, it's my understanding that they have extended people's certification so they can start the in-person classes again. But my advice to the providers would be to look at the guidance put out by whichever company you all use for your CPR training, which is should be easily accessible on their website, and that is what the department will follow.
Okay, is there a separate Reliance course for those DSPs that have not taken the medication administration class? Teresa, you kind of want to hit on that really quickly about
Sure. Sure. Yes, there is a course in Reliance that is specific to the DSPs who have not taken medication administration, but will be allowed to assist with medication through virtual technology with someone who is med certified. That course was sent out to all providers, Reliance administrators to sign up individuals. DSPs cannot sign up for this course on their own. It must be assigned to them. As of today, we have had 46 provider agencies take advantage of this, and we have 420 DSPs who have taken the course, and I believe we have around 800 more who are registered to take that course.
Okay, we had a question about has PCM been extended with the other certifications? Dr. Davis, do you have any guidance or any insight into this?
Sorry, repeat the question. PPM?
PCM?
PCM. Oh, okay. Yes. So that's professional crisis management. So as it relates to all physical management courses, so these are courses that people have to meet the requirement that we have for agencies to have a physical management course for people who might become aggressive or have self-harm, so that they can intervene effectively in those circumstances. The requirement is at this point that an agency will follow the guidance of the body that certifies them. So in the case of PCM, the agency should go to the PCM website, determine what the guidance is from that certifying agency, and follow that guidance. And so in most of these cases, they have suspended in-person classes and have suggested alternatives for that. I don't know specifically what PCM has recommended. However, Michelle Bagby has put the PCM website in the chat box so that people could go there and determine what the guidance of that PCM is with respect to renewals. And so that is the expectation that we have at this time.
Okay, and I will remind everyone in the chat box, Michelle, like Dr. Davis mentioned, has placed a couple of links about some of the guidance for areas. Also, Carly Carlton placed a link for the YouTube video of Commissioner's DSP video as well. So if you look in that chat function, you'll see some of those links that are there. We have a couple of questions with the same theme, and it is about visitation in the homes, restrictions on such, or people or families taking their person home for a day or a weekend and returning them. Deputy Commissioner Allen, do you want to speak to this briefly?
Sure. So the guidance that we've issued thus far provides for agencies to enact policies that limit or prohibit visitors, obviously based on the pretense of safety to those supported inside the residence. And as is consistent with other guidance, we continue to support that latitude for each individual provider agency to enact those policies as it relates specifically to abuse, neglect, exploitation, or claims of mistreatment by the provider agency for enacting that policy. Obviously, we wouldn't consider that to be a neglectful act. In fact, each individual agency who's developed a policy has the freedom and latitude to enact that policy with the families and persons that they support, and the department maintains a position of support of that.
All right, and then Teresa, you might have a little bit more to add to this one. So I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think Jordan's answer was, I agree with you, Jordan's answer 100%. I think the only thing I would add to that, Kara, would be to tell people you may want to try to get creative in some ways, just to, as this goes on and on and on. For example, if a family member could visit a person outdoors where they were at least 6 feet away and the family was willing to potentially wear a mask just so people could see people face to face, that might be something, to think about as this pandemic continues and continues. But agree with Jordan 100%. There will be no action taken from protection from harm, none of that. Either way, if you let family visit or if you don't, just follow your own policies that you have in place and what you feel will keep your staff and the people supported safe.
Okay. All right. I am not seeing any more questions at this point. So I
got it.
You
got it. Yeah. Bye-bye.
All right. See you later, too. So I'm going to let Commissioner Turner give us some words to end this meeting. And like I said, we're committed to continuing to do this on Wednesdays at 9:30 for the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Karen. Again, I appreciate everyone that contributed and shared your comments and feedback and your questions. That's exactly what we're hoping happens from these meetings and results. And I hope that you feel that it's been worth your time to share that. Again, what impacts you is our number one priority in the individuals that we serve. We want to make sure that your questions are being answered. I don't believe in trying to avoid tough questions. I hope you feel that we're trying our best to hit these questions head on and make sure that we're getting you information that is valuable and information that is pertinent to you and your businesses. So please continue to keep feeding us those questions. If you don't get them in on time, obviously we have that chat. I want everyone to feel comfortable enough to ask whatever question you have, even if it just impacts you. Please let us know, because we're a partnership, and that's what you do in a good partnership is you communicate openly, transparently, and effectively. So appreciate your time again, and hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday, and we'll talk to everybody next week. Bye-bye.
All right, and we'll see everyone later. Once again, we have a lot of information on our COVID page, and please read Open Line because we are sharing information there and doing special editions as warranted. So we look forward to talking to you next week, and thanks for joining us today.